Hey guys, this is Rivian Rundown. My name is Isaiah,
I'm Zach.
and we have.
And I'm Chad.
Oh, all right, Chad,
It
introduce
worked. It
yourself.
worked.
We're keeping this all
Yeah.
in.
We're putting this in. We're keeping
We'll keep this all in. Okay. Yeah, we have Chad as our second guest, and this is episode number 6. Number 6. All right, time's moving by so fast. So we have a lot to talk about. More specifically, Chad here runs a website called Rivian Roamer. I think if you are pretty involved if you're paying attention to what's happening in the Rivian community, you know about Rivian Roamer. We'll get into a load of questions in a second. But Chad, did you want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Chad. Obviously, as Isaiah said, I am the sole developer behind Rivian Roamer. Been involved with EVs, I'd say, since 2017, where I went fully EV household since then. So, wow, that was 7 years ago. Am I mathing right? Yeah. And recently got into Rivian and got to meet the community on Twitter, and all seemed like it happened pretty quick.
Yeah, it feels like it tends to do that when you get into this.
Yep.
So what EVs did you have before you got your Rivian?
Yeah, so in 2017, I had a 2014 Audi S6 that I had like modded and took it to the track. It was like a fun, like fast sedan, German sedan type of thing. Loved the sound of the V8, and I was like, all right, it's time to maybe change it up a little bit. I was becoming a homeowner and needed something a little bit more practical, and I was cross shopping a bunch of vehicles. And at the time, the Model X, I was like, the idea of a EV SUV sounds interesting. I loved all the tech, given that I have a background in software engineering. Anything tech forward, absolutely loved. And so I went to the Tesla showroom and I was like, hey, I'm kind of interested in test driving. And then I told them like all the nerdy details I already knew about it and everything. And they were like, do you just want to take it for an overnight and bring it back tomorrow? I was like, I can do that. And they're like, yeah, here are the keys. Just bring it back by noon tomorrow. I went and test drove it and, did my first supercharging session. I think the V2 superchargers had just launched.
Yep.
And so I was like, oh my God, I hit like 400 miles an hour, which in today's day and age is like very slow, right? And I brought it back the next day and I was like, okay, where do I sign? And within 12 hours, it made the decision for me to jump into an EV, and I bought a 2017 Model X.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, your experience is very similar to mine. I'd always wanted one. I was tired. I was driving a Jeep. I was tired of paying for gas. Mm-hmm. Gas prices were going back up. I went down to Tesla. I test drove a Model S, took it on the freeway, got it up to like 100 and something in like 5 seconds. And I'm just like, all right, I need this car. And like within like a month, I had one. And yeah, it's amazing.
Yep.
So what made you decide to get a Rivian?
So since then, I've owned 3 of the 4 major Tesla vehicles. I guess now there's 5 with the Cybertruck, but I had traded in the X for a Model 3 Performance because I moved back into the city and I was like, well, now I don't need this big SUV. Yep. And I actually took delivery of the very first Model 3 Performance Plus. I don't know if anyone remembers when they called them that.
Yep.
Yeah, the very first one in the state of Washington. Cool. Took delivery of that. They literally just rolled it off the truck. Still had like the barcodes and everything on it, and I just drove it away. I was like, I'll take it. Had that for 2 years. Traded it in for Model Y because then I needed something in the middle. I was doing lots of road trips and wanted to camp in it. So I traded that in for Model Y. Had that for 3.5 years, put 70,000 miles on it. I think It was a fantastic car.
Yeah.
I had been looking at Rivian ever since they opened up reservations. And I was like, I'm just not a truck guy. Like it just doesn't fit my needs and it's bigger than I needed. And I was like, I don't know if I actually want a truck. And so I hemmed and hawed on it for a while. And then I heard they're coming out with the SUV. And I was like, all right, maybe that'll be what I get. And it was over this past holiday break. Me and my girlfriend were walking to the local coffee shop. And I just happened to be scrolling on the Rivian site. She looks over and she goes, you look at that site all the time. When are you just going to do it? I was like, I don't know, it's like $1,000 deposit. She was like, shut up and do it. And I was like, okay, boom, deposit. And it escalated quickly because I knew at the time, I think they were saying like a 6-month wait. So I was expecting like spring, summer. And I was like, all right, R1S, this will be great for the summertime, go camping in it and everything. And then all of a sudden I got an email that's like, hey, for people that are more recent to Rivian, maybe you didn't know, they used to have like a shop you had to get access to. Like you didn't just, the shop wasn't public. And so then I got access to the shop and I was looking, I was like, ooh, because I had ordered a dual motor performance large. And I was like, this just fits my needs. It's everything I want. Coming from Model Y, it was still faster. I was like, it's great.
Yep.
And then I saw a quad show up with all of my specs and I was like, and they said I could have it in 2 weeks and pulled the trigger. A few weeks later it showed up and yeah, that was it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have that same experience. Like with me, I came from Model Y Performance, and it was getting to the point where like it needed new tires, it needed like some other like little minor things, and I'm like, all right, I need something comfortable that, you know, I'm like, I'm gonna go test drive one. So my girlfriend and I drive out to the service center to do the test drive, and I'm like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't really want a truck. Like, I didn't really want the R1S. I'm just like, SUV. Like, So test drove the R1T and I instantly fell in love with it. And then my girlfriend drove it and she instantly fell in love with it. And she liked it. Like she fell in love with it even like harder than I did. And she's like, you'd be stupid if you don't get this truck. I'm like, okay, all right, I got to get it. So then like literally within like a week I had it like in my driveway. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So the interesting part of that is that in the state of Washington, Rivian can't do test drives.
Right.
And so I don't want to say I had to blind buy it, but I was like, I don't know, like $90,000 vehicle because I didn't get the pre-voucher pricing or I didn't get Isaiah's crazy lease deal or anything. So like, actually they launched leasing 3 days after I took delivery. So that's fun. But anyway, so I went on Turo and just rented an R1S for the weekend. And I was like, this is really my only option. And we drove it around Olympic National Park and got a feel for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm making the right move. And my girlfriend said the same thing. She was like, you got to get this. This is like so much better than the Y.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, I agreed.
Yeah.
Isaiah, do you have any questions
or
anything? Or
I'm doing all the from the intro and everything. I've been feeling a little like tense. Yeah, I know I need to let loose a little bit. I don't know why. I'm like, we have Rivian Roamer right here, you know. We have a celebrity.
I mean, you've been there since its birth. You know all about it.
Yeah. No, it's just there's a lot going in the back of my mind right now. But no, I my introduction to Rivian, man, it was the MKBHD video. This was like he made the video like a week after Rivian unveiled the R1T or R1S. And it was about Tesla killers. And I think at that point, I knew about all of the EV startups, Rivian, Lucid, Faraday Future, Neo, Nikola. Like it was kind of this prime, like before the IPO, just a lot of, names out there. And there's something about Rivian that I just loved. And as time moved on, I think I had the same feeling within the Rivian community that I had in the Tesla community. And mind you, my Rivian's my first car that I've went and bought and the first EV of mine, although I've been involved in the Tesla community. So I can't even speak on like ownership experience. I can only speak on what it is like to be, in the stands. And just as Tesla moved into more of the really stock focus, I just felt very like Rivian felt like early Tesla. And everyone was so tight knit, and RJ was a great leader. I loved it. Of course, I ended up getting my R1T, which just the lease deal was just getting, the offers were just getting better and better. So I just kind of hopped on it. But
that deal you got is insane.
Yeah, I'm jealous, and I got mine a week before you.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good topic for today, and I also want to talk about a bit of the spaces, and hopefully for a future episode, I've hit up Eric, and so Eric Perkins. So if you're active on Twitter, his ad is Mechanica, and he is a Tesla Model S Plaid owner. He's an R1T owner. He's owned an R1S previously. And when we went to the R2 unveil, he got to meet with the head of Rivian Spaces, the person who finds locations, who kind of coordinates the entire marketing side of Spaces. And they had a really good chat. And he's always felt that the spaces were really wasteful. But point is, I think that'd be kind of a mild conversation, and I would love to hear, especially as it evolves with Rivian Roamer, what your thoughts are, Chad. But
Yeah.
I think we'll also probably have to talk about my accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Oh no.
yeah, that was.
You roamed a little too hard.
I roamed
Yeah.
a little too hard.
Well, here, why don't you talk about that really
Yeah.
quick, really quick, and then what we can do is we can get into Rivian Roamer and ask
Yes.
Chad all the questions that everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
So, Isaiah, what happened to you and your R1?
Yeah, I want to talk about Rivian Roamer, but I was driving on, I think it's I-75, and I was leaving Orlando. So last episode kind of talked about it. I was participating in Out of Specs I-90 Surge, driving from Seattle to Boston. Met Chad in Seattle for the first time, which is kind of crazy because, you know, you're friends with someone online for so long, and it's like, oh my gosh, finally in person.
Yep.
But yeah, so
That was cool.
it was awesome meeting Chad. He also gave me the Vampire Gear Guard. Gary, thank you so much. I love this thing.
Yeah.
I got to post all of I still have a million pictures that I need to post, but that was super fun carrying this around because whatever. But I took my flight from Boston to Orlando. I got into Orlando like 10 p.m. I wanted to drive back to Tallahassee where I live because I had work the next day. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to hit the road. Around 2 a.m., front right tire blew out. I was in the middle lane, and I immediately swerved into the kind of back left corner of a semi. And the semi truck didn't even notice. I have no idea. They did not stop. They did nothing. They just continued to drive. And my guess is semi trucks already deal with so many issues and lawsuits that I wouldn't be surprised if he noticed and was just like, let's just act like we didn't notice. But that's whatever.
Just keep driving.
Yeah,
Or they're gonna get to the dock and be like, "What happened here?"
Yeah.
Honestly, from my view, I don't think anything happened to the trailer. It didn't look like anything really touched the trailer. But the entire front right side, the bumper came off, but the right fender specifically, right light, right stadium light, kind of just went out and it's all crumpled. Luckily, nothing structural was touched. And,
That's
you know, I'm going at a steady 75 miles an hour. And it was kind of just a really light Honda bump. That's a reference to something else, but a really light tap. And so it wasn't like a direct hit into something, you know, it was kind of almost a graze, and that just kind of mangled whatever. And for the most part, everything seems to be cosmetic. Thought it was going to be totaled. I was this close.
good.
I mean, I was on the Model 3 Performance webpage, was going to buy it. Didn't, because like an hour before I planned to go to the Tesla like service center and kind of maybe do it in person, kind of look through everything before I made a final decision, Geico contacted and said, hey, it's not going to be totaled out. And so, I'm in the repair phase right now. Hopefully next week
Awesome.
I'll have an update. But yeah, that's really it.
But you're okay.
I'm
You're
okay.
fine.
And you're fine. That's all.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
The Rivian did its job and kept the precious cargo safe.
My dog, I was with my dog and she did not wake up the entire
No.
I have.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, no, she was dead asleep, and I was holding the wheel, and I looked back for a split second while trying to control the vehicle to see if she was okay, and she was still asleep, and I was like, you have no idea what just happened. But no, Rivian did a great job, and yeah, I mean that kind of touches on the lease offers. I was looking at leasing or even buying out a R1T or R1S, but the lease offers on the Gen 2 are kind of
Not
especially right without all the
Yeah.
discounts and things, and yeah, so much of it being gone now. It's almost the price to finance as it is to lease. So it's like might as well just finance it. But yeah, I used Rivian Roamer, and we'll kind of jump into that. I was using Rivian Roamer like for those like 5 days. I was back and forth and refreshing and looking to find another Rivian. Kind of want an R1S. even after the RVT. I was like,
Mm.
let me get something different. But yeah, let's talk about Rivian Roamer. I mean, I think this is a I think it's important that people know how much you've done for the community, Chad, and how many people you've like reached with this website.
Yeah.
Even people who like don't know that I know you. It's just my personal Rivian people in like my life, who live in my city. They'll mention it, and it comes up in conversation, and I'm like, just makes me smile.
That's
Like
wild.
you've done something like really big. And I open Reddit or I open Rivian forums and they're like, oh, there's this offer here and it's your website. And they're not even using Rivian's own website. But I'll let me give the stage to you, right? Like, what exactly is Rivian Roamer? What do you do? And kind of what do you see in your plans for Rivian Roamer? What are your like long-term goals?
Yeah. So I'll back up a little bit.
Yeah, loaded question.
This is going to go way back, but I think it's like the origin story of why I invested so much time into this. Back in probably 2018, someone had asked me, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? And I thought about it for a while. Well, everyone kind of took turns. And my response was say yes to adventure. The spirit of that was that anytime someone asked me to do something, or anytime I had a fleeting thought in my head about doing something that was adventurous, I had to do it unless I legitimately had a good reason. And so that led me down some really interesting paths, like going on a solo road trip for 4 weeks in my Model Y. It was fantastic. One of the best experiences of my life.
That's awesome.
So in my Instagram profile, if either you follow me, you'll see it says, say yes to adventure. It's been there since I said that. And when I took delivery of my R1S, I looked over on the dash and it said adventurous forever. And I was like, holy crap, like this was meant to be. So while my day job is a software engineer at a relatively large tech company, if you can sleuth it, you'll find where I work. But it may be my day job, but it's also my passion. Like I love doing it. I will close my work laptop and open my personal laptop and continue working on my hobbies. I built some Tesla websites back in the day. I did a bunch of reverse engineering. I released an Alexa skill. Sorry, anyone that has one. That I can send you guys a video that backed my Model X out of my driveway. And opened and closed the garage door, did all this kind of like fun stuff on the side. And so I was like, I wonder if I can do this with Rivian. And so I was looking at a book on my coffee table and it said Roaming America. And that's when I went and got the domain. And I was like, I wonder what I can build. My original gut instinct was build something kind of like some of the other websites out there, like Tessie or Teslab or Teslify, like being able to see data about how you use your Rivian. But people had already done that. So I was like, how can I differentiate from that? Because I want to do something special, something different. And I want it to be adventure themed because that's what I love doing. I've owned my Rivian for 5 months now. And I have spent 17 days sleeping in it. And so almost an entire month. And so that's like what I get the use of. And I want to help other people do that. So that was the spirit or the origin story of building it. And originally how I did that was I'm going to add all this charging site data. So shortly after Rivian launched their charging reliability score, I reverse engineered how to be able to pull that down. And actually in the early days before Rivian Roamer was public, I sent Isaiah links. That's the only thing it had was the charging data, but it was like you could sort it and like kind of go through it rather than having to use the app. And then I was like, well, let me add a second feature. Let me add inventory for funsies. I didn't think it would actually go anywhere. And I added it. And I think I launched it with inventory. It was the day they announced Gen 2. No, it was something before. Something big had happened. I forget when it was exactly. It was like late May, early June. Something big happened with Rivian and I launched it. Instantly it kind of like took off. But yeah, that was kind of the origin story of how it got where it is today.
Yeah, amazing.
That's awesome.
I if people kind of envision here, so I don't know if this is like a good thing or bad thing, but when people ask about Rivian Roamer, I tell them it's similar to, I would say, like as of right now, and I know you have other plans in the future, which we'll talk about, but like Auto Tempest for Rivians, and a website where you can find all of the Rivians that Rivian has listed. it's kind of funny because I'll go on Rivian Roamer and I'll find a Rivian, and I go on Rivian's website and I'm like, it's not here. What's like, and I'll have to
What is
change.
it?
Yeah.
I'll have like go through all many settings, and I've even gone through like service, and they're like, no, it's there, and I'm like, it's not on your website, but it's here on Rivian Roamer. And it's just finding everything from this exact spec that you want, all of the inventory. But yeah, it's just a good tool for finding Rivians, which I think you would think, right? Like, well, that doesn't sound maybe too extravagant, but you'd be surprised how helpful it is. Rivian, even Tesla, even if you've Lucid, Ford, no matter what, if you look at their inventory websites, they're very just kind of lackluster. And Rivian Rover has like seriously, and I think improved that.
Yeah, so well, I appreciate it. I think they're two different use cases, and I do think like the typical Rivian shop and Tesla shop serve a use case. They are, to use retail terms, serving the treasure hunter, the someone who stumbles along, right? And they find it, and they're like, "Oh, this is interesting. Let me guide you through it." Where Rivian Roamer, what I wanted to do was help people who are spear fishing, and that's people who know exactly what they want, or 1 degree off from exactly what they want, but give them a sharp tool to help them find what they need, rather than giving them an experience that's like guided and you're walking down aisles and you serendipitously stumble upon something. That's not what Rivian Roamer is. Like, a lot of people, if they could get an Excel spreadsheet of all the inventory, would probably prefer that. And that's essentially what I tried to create, was a very sharp tool with all of the available inventory. Because one of the things you pointed out, Isaiah, that the Rivian shop does with the guardrails they put in place is locality, right? And so if I want to see an R1T that's maybe one state over, I can't do that today on the Rivian shop, because they want to show you ones that are near you. Now, I could certainly go pick that one up, but generally the only people that are willing to do that are those that are spearfishing, right? You wouldn't want to do that for your typical customer who stumbles upon, like, you imagine going to a dealership and you're like, I would like to buy this car. And they're like, cool, you have to go to Tennessee. And you're like, what? Why would I do that? So it makes sense why Rivian did it the way they did. But I don't think Rivian anticipated how many people are willing to adventure for their adventure vehicle and go pick them up and drive them home, right? So many people have sent me stories where they're like, oh my God, it was great. I got to drive it back home on this awesome road trip, and they're sending me pictures. People want that. I didn't expect people to want it this much, but people really wanted it. So
how many, speaking of that, how many like daily unique page views do you normally get? Like, how many people are discovering the site for the first time and all that? Like, is there like an average, or like, do you see like a trend?
yeah, it's still trending up pretty significantly, which is good. What's wild for anyone who knows anything about analytics or marketing, 95% of my traffic is organic, non-referred, which is unheard of. Like, generally you get a lot of Google, a lot of like links from other people. It's less than 5%. And so, sorry, what was your original question? Oh, the unique visitors.
Yeah.
It peaked at like 2,000 very quickly.
Wow.
Like very quickly. And then I added some additional features and worked on the UX a little bit. And after the friends and family incentive, it was growing about 500 a week. And now it's steadily hitting around 8,000 unique people per day.
That's insane. I can't even like fathom that growth like on a website that's so niche anyway. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. And one thing I've really focused on is like, it's not very, like, from a hosting perspective. Like, I've had a lot of people say, oh, you should charge people, you should do this. Like, the hosting costs for it are like $30-$50 a month. Like, that's not much.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay like funding that out of pocket. Like, it's not a big deal for me. And I didn't want to like riddle it with ads or anything like that. And I had two things I've kept in mind. In fact, the reason the UX still is very utilitarian, and I'm going to keep it that way, but the reason it still looks like a developer built it, I'm a developer, is that I've had so many creative differences with designers because they want to make it look like Rivian Shop. And I'm like, no, like, I want to keep it fast and snappy. Like, if you like click around, you'll notice like the response times are instant. Like, if you hover on something and click, like within 100 milliseconds, the page is loaded. Yeah. And so I focus on that and decluttering the UX and making it information dense. Like, that are the two things I focus on. And until I can find a designer who's willing to work with me on those things and not try to make it look like a Rivian or a Tesla shop, it will probably stay me for now. But I think that's one of the things people really appreciate. And so that's why I've really strived to like not let it go into, not that anything's wrong with the Rivian shop, but I don't need to recreate it. There's a reason people use the Rivian shop, and there's a reason that people use Rivian Roamer.
I think if you did anything like that, it kind of like loses its charm. I'm like pointing over here. I have it up on my other computer. I think it would lose its charm. Like if you were to like, make it pretty like Rivian shop or something. I think like the reason why it works so well, and it's because everything is just there. And like it's clearly laid out. It has that responsiveness, where like you can literally see like if I click right here and click new R1S and R1T inventory, here's literally the entire inventory of new Rivians, and it loaded within less than a second. It feels like.
Yep. And then shrink your browser and you'll watch it automatically like size and do everything appropriately. So it works for all device types. Like I wanted to make sure it was accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and like it looks really good on mobile as well. Like if I were to bring it up on my phone, it's just and the same response. So yeah, it's pretty great. All right, so since you kind of got into it a little bit, what near term, midterm, long term, like what are you looking to bring to Rivian Roamer?
I listen to feedback. I have a bunch of screenshots because I want to post them. But I've had people like on Reddit, like there's a feature you'll notice if you make a filter where there isn't any inventory, it'll tell you the last time it was seen.
I love that.
That was
I love that.
Thank you. That was a request, and I wish I could give this person credit. It was someone on Reddit who asked me. They were like, "Hey, it would be nice if I could see the last time it was seen, or can you tell me if it was ever seen?" From the moment I saw that to the moment it was live was 30 minutes. And so I respond very well to feedback. If I have a catalog I keep, and I'm working on making that public, by the way, so people can like vote on it, maybe publicly have a centralized place for people to give me feedback. But near term, there are 3 major categories I'm working on. The first one is still inventory. Now, I think I'm like approaching what I think is like keep the lights on mode for that, where there isn't too much more I can do without making it look too cluttered, or I'll continue to innovate and find ways to add features into that. But I want to be mindful. Like there are a lot of features I say no to because I don't want it to become like, and I don't want to like crap on Tesla here, but because of all the features they've added to their software, have you seen their settings menu or iOS?
Yeah.
Now they have to have a search because there's so many features. I don't want to get into that. And so I'm being very mindful about the features I add, where I want to make sure it's a value add to many. I don't just want to have like 500,000 filters. And there's a reason why I haven't done that. So the near term, the big one a lot of people have requested, it's not super easy to implement. So I'm trying to be careful about how I do it, is inventory notifications. I know a lot of people have asked about this, and I am building it, and it will be free. I think maybe I need to put a mission statement on Rivian Roamer as I talk to you about this. Everything I've told everyone, my goal is to deliver maximum customer value for free. And we'll get into this like long term. There will be paid features, but they will be paid mainly just for my time, to like make sure I can continue to invest in it, because at some point it does become a second job. So near term, inventory notifications. Locality filtering. So you're like, but why? Rivian does that. Well, kind of. There are some things I want to be able to do that if you want to set like a range, right? You could say maybe in these states I'm willing to travel. So you could do that. Imagine a map where you click on states and say, if inventory with this configuration pops up in these states, let me know. And then have multiple notification channels. So it could be a push notification, a text message, email, whatever you want. So that's in the work in the near term. And I think a lot of people have requested that. And I think that would be really useful, even for existing owners. A couple other things. One thing I added recently, if you haven't noticed, I add a lot of features under the hood and sometimes I'm not super loud about them. If you go now to a vehicle listing and you put in your zip code to check the availability, it will show you a lease calculator. And you can now tweak the lease numbers. So you can adjust the down payment. You can adjust your credit score. You can do everything to get a lease payment that's personalized to you. And one thing you can do, and this is actually, by the way, using Rivian's own calculations. I'm not like doing the math myself. So you will get a similar number from Rivian. You can put in a negative number for the down payment if you want to roll in some negative equity. I'm not going to get into a discussion of whether or not you should do that. That's your own personal decision. But there are people that want to do that. So why not support it, right? So yeah, and like that's fine. Like for some people that works, and Rivian allows you, or I guess Chase, they're the lien holders for leases, allow you to do that. And so all these little small features I plan on adding to inventory. And I think a lot of these will become very prevalent as we start to look to R2. So that's the near term.
I'm using that feature right now, just on
Right,
this
same.
like try.
I also have it
this
up.
R1
Yeah, I'm like
I'm just like, this is
using
really
this.
awesome.
A lot of the reasons some of these features take a little longer. One, it's my hobby. It's not my primary job. But two, I try to be very, very mindful of the user experience and how I introduce it. Like it could be very easy to make this cluttered. And I think the second it gets cluttered or hard to use, that turns people off. Like I know when I get the joy from using an application or a website when it's snappy and everything's in front of me and isn't super cluttered. So I've really tried to focus on that. So there's a lot of like half done features because I haven't yet figured out the experience. So I've really tried to focus on that.
I'm literally staring at this page. I'm like, there's something different about this. And I just noticed that you added those 4 categories, like the best lease deal, the best price, most viewed, and yours.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I'm like, why does this look different? And that's exactly why. Like, I think it's been there for at least a few days, right? Or at least a week or so.
I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks. Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, all right. It just A, tells you how much I look at the site. B, I look at it enough that I know that it's there. I'm just like, yeah. No, that's awesome. And they're all green. They're all forest green R1.
The right color.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. the best color is LA Silver. We don't need to kind of talk about it more. But no, this lease calculator, I'm using it here as well. Dude, I love this. And talking about design, right? I mean, the front end, I love it. I mean, I think it works for most people. I've shown this to my mom. Mm-hmm. She's kind of browsed through it, and she's not old, but you get it. So I think it works. Yeah, she's a mom. But I think this works like perfectly. And this lease calculator here. I mean, being able to change everything for the mileage and your credit, and not even having to go all the way into Rivian's website, and still being able to have everything kind of easy to read here as well.
And it's faster than Rivian's website and their lease calculator, and you don't have to click out of things to get it to update or refresh the calculation.
They hide it behind things, right? Like you have to know to click on that little calculator icon, and you have to go into each vehicle separately to be able to do that. And so I'm trying to bring as much in front of people as possible, because I think when you're making a high consideration purchase decision, like a $90,000 vehicle, everyone's like at their desktops, right? And they have multiple tabs open, and they're like trying to cross shop these different options. Give them the tools they need to be able to make that decision. That's my goal. And now, while I think I'm slowly reaching, I don't want to say the end, because I'll continue to add features to inventory, but I'll get more and more mindful, and I may subtract some as they become unnecessary. But certainly some fun ones. I know we're a ways away, but I'll give a teaser. I have a very fun one planned for April Fool's Day that I hope people are very excited about. You may see some fun filters show up. But yeah, so that's like the inventory side of things, which, when I built it, I had no idea it was going to be this popular. I did it just to prove a concept and help me add another feature to Rivian Roamer. I expected after 2 weeks of working on it to be like, I'm done. I can move on to the next feature. Little did I know this would be the most beloved feature of the application. And so I said, you know what? While I had some other long-term plans, this is what people love. I'm going to work on it. And I continue to solicit feedback. One thing to look out for that is coming in, a lot of people have asked for this, is I don't know if anyone used it back in the early days. I had like a table view. I'll be bringing that back.
Nice.
The reason I didn't have it is it's kind of a bad experience on mobile. Like it's just hard and awkward to use. And so I'm going to make it an optional experience on desktop, where if you really want, you have like a big monitor, you can have the full table view. Because what I heard from a lot of people is that they'll want, like, let's say a forest green because it's the right color vehicle with the premium audio, but maybe they're willing to sacrifice the wheels. And so right now they're having to like click through the filters on Rivian Roamer to do that. So what if I could just show you in an information dense experience all of the vehicles available in a table view, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can find the appropriate one for you. So like that's coming, small things like that.
That's awesome. I love it.
But the two other categories I'm working on, a fun one, which not many people know about. I haven't talked about it publicly, so this will be the first. Probably by the time you publish it, it should be in private or public beta. In fact, you two should have access to it this weekend, is software wave tracking.
Nice.
And so one cool thing is Rivian exposes, not via the app, but via their API, which isn't official, but via their API, whether or not your vehicle's been flagged for software. Where this is useful is if you live in a place where maybe you don't have permanent Wi-Fi for your R1, you don't know if your vehicle's ready to download the update. So what do? Do you just connect it and hope it downloads? Like, it doesn't tell you until it's downloaded. And so I'll be able to surface to you. You'll be able to link your Rivian account and securely. By the way, I have a background in privacy and security and everything. I take this very seriously. I do security disclosures and everything, so I'll make sure it's private and secure. But you'll be able to link your Rivian account, and it'll tell you when your vehicle's been flagged, send you a notification, say, hey, connect to Wi-Fi so you can get the latest download, and give you access to the release notes ahead of time and everything like that. So that should be coming out soon, and that will be a completely free feature as well.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
It's exciting, man. Seeing the growth in real time is kind of like, I don't know. It's
yeah, it's
personal.
crazy.
Yeah, this is like, oh my gosh.
It's been fun. And given, I see this much of a community project as it is mine. Like, I feel like I'm the steward of it, but everything I do is guided by community feedback. If you go check out the Rivian Roamer X account or the Threads account, you'll see I'm responding to everyone. And I'm saying, what do you want to see? And I'm prioritizing those things because at the end of the day, I want a tool that people want to use. This is not self-serving for me at all. And if someone wants to see something, they can DM me or, tag Isaiah or Zach, and I'm sure they'll tell me, and I'll build it. A lot of these small features, I will just go off and build within an hour. And the software one's taking a little longer, mostly because one thing I am doing, I want to be in good standing with Rivian. And one of those things is to not leak beta releases, which other sites do right now. And I think they do it because it gets them traffic, right? And that's fine. If that's how you feel like you need to get traffic because your product isn't actually providing that much value, go for it. But I want to make sure I'm not doing that. And I know Rivian doesn't want that information out there. So one thing I need to do is make sure that I don't release beta releases to everyone. And so, part of my private beta testing I'm doing now is making sure I'm not doing that. And I'm working with some people who are in the early access program and, making sure that that's being done the right way. So I'm very mindful about these types of things.
Yeah, actually, I think one of the very first interactions I ever had with you was requesting a feature on Rivian Roamer, way back, and it was RSS feeds. So,
Yep.
Yeah, and it you
And I
literally had it implemented the same day. I'm like, whoa, dude, you don't need to go off and do it just because I asked for it, and you did it, and I'm just like, okay, I get it, I see this. So.
Yeah, well, the reason I think you gave me the motivation because a lot of people have been asking for inventory notifications, and I will say I probably should have done it sooner. This is one of my only regrets. The reason I didn't do it sooner is I thought because of the big incentives push that the second the incentives went away, people wouldn't want it. Right. A lot of people wanted notifications because they wanted a 2023 or 2024 with a certain price range, and they'd be able to grab it quickly. But the incentives went away, and people are still asking me for it. So I was like, okay, I probably should have just listened to people's feedback. But people had asked me enough, Zach, when you reached out to me and asked me for that, I was like, you know what? That's a good idea because people can use third-party applications with an RSS feed to basically get them notifications.
Yep.
And so you can use if this then that or InnoReader or any other RSS app, and it'll give you notifications. And that met the need for most people. So I was like, I was able to still provide that value without all the effort it took into building that first party.
Yeah.
Because on the surface, it sounds like notifications are easy. It's not. Like getting SMS, and if you spam people with email, you can have your email cut off. There are all these privacy concerns and things you have to worry about. Not that I don't want to do it. It's a lot of effort. So yeah, RSS met that need, and a lot of people loved it. In fact, it is the hardest hit route on the application is the RSS feed.
Nice. I love it.
So thank you for suggesting that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was just really cool. And then because I subscribed to IFT, and because I use it for cross posting and stuff, and so when you did that, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Not not at that point that I needed it, but I was just like, this is really cool. I want to see if like more Red Canyon R1Ts pop up in the shop, or like when the new ones come out. Like, so I was able to do that, and
yeah,
it was awesome. It was great.
I have a feeling though, once I release notifications, I'm going to have a lot of people say, how do I get it first? Like there's going to be a race, right?
Yeah.
And I won't be doing that. I won't be offering any paid features. I've had some people be like, I'll give you like $2-3 a month if you like delay notifications. And I'm like, on it, that's unethical. I would never do that. I'm going to approach this morally and ethically right as I can with anything I build. If you will see paid features, but like I said, they'll only be because of the time investment required, not because I'm trying to make an earning on this or anything. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome.
I have some long-term vision. I'll say I wrote out a 12-month product vision, which I've shared a little bit with Isaiah. But I want to continue to find. So I think about this as a journey. The first thing I built was helping you find your vehicle. Then the following tools I want to be about helping you understand. And then the third part is helping you enjoy. And so I want this product as it grows to continue to add value to your Rivian ownership. Right now, it starts at, I don't own one. How do I get one? Now I'm starting to build software. Okay, I own one. How can I better understand it via software, right? And then the follow-up tooling, I want to be like, I'm going to I do plan to have like drive charging session information. Like I honestly think that's uninteresting, but useful because it's data. And I know people will nerd out of it. I'm going to build it. Don't worry, it's coming. But I want to add more value to it other than just seeing a dashboard worth of data. So an example of some ideas, which I haven't shared with anyone yet, is like this idea of breadcrumbs and where you adventure with your vehicle. So keeping track of that. Have you ever seen a game where it has like a fog of war? Imagine like unlocking the fog of war as you drive around, but specifically focusing on areas that are like adventure-y, right? So some ideas I've had that are, I would say, not well formed, but I could see myself doing is like having badges for all of national parks. If you go to a national park, giving you a national park badge and keeping track of all the ones you've visited. Integrating with Rivian's trip planner, so being able to plan a trip. But the way it works right now, I think, is inherently flawed for how most people want to use it. And I understand why Rivian and Tesla built it the way they did. The way their trip planners currently work is I'm at A, I want to get to B, get me there as fast as possible. But that's not what people want. What a lot of people, unless you're on the I-90 surge, of course, what most people want is they want to enjoy that journey. And so what if I'm here, I want to get here, I choose my charging stops. Like, why not give you a list of options near fun things to do along the way or places to stop? Or maybe I want to camp in Yosemite for a night. How much energy will that take? How do I plan that into my drive? Like those types of things, so that you get to plan your adventures. I'm calling it like this adventure planner, where you go through and you're not just going from one city to another. You are building your journey. The destination is just part of it, right? And so being able to pick places you want to stop and having suggestions along a route that come from the community with pictures and things people do and things like that, enriching your journey with other information. And so that's something I've been slowly working on, but it's going to be a very big feature. So I don't want to take Rivian Roamer dark for a while and not deliver value while I'm working on this, but I've been working on it for the better part of a month, and it'll probably take another 5 to 6 months to finally get out there. But that's like my long-term vision. And so this includes things like camp planning. Like one thing I mentioned, I do a lot is camp in the back of my R1S. But a lot of people don't know, one, how to do that, or how do they plan the charging? So offering guides on what's a TT30? How do I use the adapter? What locations have TT30 versus NEMA 1450? What is the charging rate? How much energy am I going to use sleeping in the back of my vehicle? How do I safely do that? All of these things I want to enrich people's experiences with. And so that's the long-term vision. And I hope as I learn more about it, I can serendipitously figure out more ideas, but that's kind of where I'm headed right now.
So that leads me to ask, since you're doing something like that and having all of that, do you plan on making a mobile app either for like iOS or Android or both? Or
Yeah, I would love to, and I plan to. It's on my plans, but it'll likely be a web app in a native wrapper type of situation. There are a lot of great tools and frameworks, and we don't get too technical nowadays that offer you to do that. But one thing I've focused really hard on, because I've had a lot of people, and I am going to get a little into the nerdy details here if we want to talk about how I've implemented Rivian Roamer. It's not using any of your modern front-end JavaScript frameworks. I'm not using React. I'm not using Angular, any of those ones that a lot of people love to use. It's just HTML over the wire. I didn't overthink it. I kept it very simple. It's very snappy. And I'm going to do the same for the native app. The app. It will feel native, but it will not feel like your typical, what they call a hybrid app, where it's a web app with just a wrapper.
Yeah.
They're very laggy. They don't feel native. I want it to feel native. And so I'll make sure that it feels like you're using an iOS app, but it won't be. And the reason I'm doing that strategy, it's just me. It's just a side project right now. The thing I have to optimize for is my time. And so that's what I'm doing right now. But like I said earlier, I'm not going to launch something if it's not a good experience. So if I go down that road and it doesn't work out, I'll figure out a way to make a native app possible. But yeah, I think there needs to be a companion application to it, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want people forced to go to a website. Like it works right now for what they're doing, making a high consideration purchase. But if I'm serendipitously out camping and I don't have a laptop, how am I going to do it? And cramming that all into like a mobile website is kind of awkward. So yeah, I do plan to have both iOS and Android apps available.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'll pose this in two questions, because I really love the route planning idea. Just traveling and road tripping in an EV, especially a road trip where you have a destination in mind, but it really is about the journey. Modern, whether it's a better route planner or native in-app, native in-vehicle route planners, it really is point A to point B, but you want to kind of stop in between. But I'll go in that in a second. Now, in more layman terms of the app, I guess what for those of us who I know you guys are software geniuses over there. I have no.
Well, he's
at
more of
some
a
point, I'm going to learn.
I know what he's talking about. That's about it.
I have no idea.
It.
At some point, I hope to be like and have a better understanding. But so what it seems like is, right? You still have a life. You still have a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to efficiently produce an app, but not have something that is, I guess, really native to iOS or Google, something that's going to take a really long amount of time, but you still want something that's going to feel like a true native app that was built for, this said software, something that's not, but it's also not going to, take a large amount of your time. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if I want to build a native app, like you can tell when something is native and when something's not, if it's not been done well. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a lot of applications where it has been done well. Amazon is one of those apps where most of it's actually not native, but you wouldn't guess that because they've implemented it well, right? And then there are, the Rivian app is a native app, right? It feels native. The Tesla app is a native app. It's snappy. It feels like it's happening on the device, where when it's like a hybrid app, it's happening as a website, but rendered as an app. And you feel that discontinuity between me clicking something and something happening. That needs to be near real time to feel like a native app. Now, to your other question, efficient with my time. Yeah, because if I want to build an app for Android and iOS, they use different languages. They use different design paradigms, right? So you now have to trifurcate your time. I don't even know if that's a word, but you now have to split your time between 3 different platforms. That's really hard to do. 4 if you account for desktop web, mobile web, iOS, Android. Really hard to do when it's your side project, right? And so, yeah, being efficient with my time is my utmost priority.
Awesome.
That help? Do you understand a little better, Isaiah?
That was perfect understanding. I get it now.
Yeah.
Now I say hopefully next time you're on here, I have like a full understanding and we can get deep into the code of it.
Yeah, actually, I've joked around with doing like a live session on Twitch.
Wait,
where I stream and watch people people can watch me build a feature on Rivian Roamer. I've thought about doing it. There are some like careful things I have to do to make sure I don't leak some encryption keys and stuff. But I'm working on an idea where I can stream me building a feature so people can see like the thought process and my method for doing these. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was also
And
going to
Zach,
say, Isaiah, I'd like to have Chad on sometime again in the near future. So either you need to learn really quick, or Chad, nice seeing you.
after
I
this
love teaching
episode, I'll be
people.
on it.
So if you're interested, we can do that. Maybe you can become Rivian Roamer's first employee.
There you go. I will work towards that. I will help create some value. But I wanted to kind of touch on
Okay.
that route planning for a second. I think that'd be
Sure.
an excellent idea. And I just love that you're implementing so much into something that is, again, still a side project. And I know you're super passionate about it. Either whether it's directly or indirectly, I talk to you in some form almost every single day. And
Mhm.
I know you, again, you still have an outside life, but I see how much passion and work you put into not only Riven Roamer, but the Riven community in general. So I
Thank
love
you.
all of the ideas and the work that's going into it. But yeah, the route planning, I I feel like I've talked about this so many times on this podcast, but when I took a road trip in a Tesla Model Y from LA through San Francisco, the Bay Area, Tahoe, Yosemite, a lot of it was this A to B planning. And a lot of the times, so many of the places I wanted to see were along the way, but they didn't match with the stops that Tesla wanted for charging. And so it made this weird, like, all right, and this was the first time that I have fully trusted and been in an EV, just fully trusting the system for a long period of time. This is a week overnight. And so I'm fully trusting what Tesla says. But on the other hand, it's like, I'm going through Google Maps where you can add these stops and it'll suggest different areas. And I'm like, I want to go here and I want to do this. And they don't really combine super well. And you do want to roam and you do want to really see what else the other parts that, of traveling of the world are out there. But these native route planning apps within EVs aren't really, they don't really work for that. But again, there's a use case, right? It's
No.
A to B.
Yeah, and I think for some people it does make sense, right? Like a lot of people are trying to get to A to B fast, and that's fine. But there needs to be like, especially with like Rivian and the adventure spirit that they try to encapsulate, like having that adventures forever on their dash. I think it makes sense in the beginning to implement what they've implemented. But I think there's an opportunity to help people see what their vehicle is capable of and enjoy everything it can do. It's like, sure, I can go from Seattle to Boston in my Rivian if I wanted to. Not going to be the most exciting thing unless you're racing, right? And I want to go and see national monuments and see national parks. Maybe there's a quick little hike I can do along the way, or go off into Joshua Tree, one of my favorite national parks. Like, it'd be helpful if you could be like, create an adventure for me. That's what I want.
See, and the interesting thing is too, with all of the data that they're getting from Google for the maps, and now with the new implementation with all the information that pops up when you click on a point of interest, like, not to take away from what you're doing on Rivian Roamer, I just don't understand why Rivian doesn't do something like that natively. Like, I'm sure it's not that difficult to implement something like that. Like, you can have like a toggle and you can have direct mode or adventure mode, and if you turn on adventure mode, then it does that.
That's exactly how I have it implemented right now.
That's
And I
amazing.
wish I had some screenshots ready, but it's an adventure toggle. It's like, do you want to be adventurous?
I love it.
Or do you want to get there fast?
That's amazing.
And I think the reason Rivian isn't doing it is just they have an immense backlog. And with R2 on the horizon, if you think about the average person right now, like it's a value add, but to them, is it worth it yet? I'm not sure. Like, there's a lot of things they need to work on. Like, clearly we're still having issues with the audio. There are other things. They're like fundamental things I think they need to work on. But I agree. Like, I hope this is native to the app. And as much as I would love to be like, oh, I'm the source for doing this, because I think once Rivian implements it natively to their car, we'll see more people do that. Because while Rivians can roam off road and do all their fun things, and that can be part of the adventure planning, there's still a lot of fun on road things you can do. And I could still see this being valuable for Tesla as well. I don't know if anyone remembers this. Is it still there? There's the I'm feeling lucky button.
Yeah. I don't think
Okay.
they got rid
So
of
like that, right? But for a route, like help me plan a fun route. Like I think EVs changed the way we road trip. Previously it was, oh, I can get my car and drive for 8 hours straight, not stop, right? But now at the charging stops, I've found that I will take longer to get my destination purposefully to enjoy that time, even if it is longer. Like why just spend 8 hours on the road for nothing, right? And I hope with this mind shift with EVs, we also get some more of that adventure spirit. People are like, oh, I want to do these things. Because I think what you said, Zach, we will see it natively. It's just a question of when.
Yeah.
But if I can help do that now, why not? Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, at least, because we know that they kind of look at your site anyway also. So
I know they do, because Salesforce doesn't strip refer links. And right now, the number 6th refer is Rivian's Salesforce account. So
that's amazing.
thank you, Rivian.
Yeah. So with that being said, like, if they see that you can implement it and see how well it works and see how popular it gets, either they'll be like, oh, well, Chad did this, we'll just kind of leave him alone and let him do it. Or they'll be like, oh, hey, look at all the people that are looking at this, like, and like this and want this. And then be like, all right, let's put this in. Like, it takes you 6 months to do it. Like, they got to, hundreds of people working on it. It can probably get done in like, knowing the process, easily. Like 1/4 the time, 1/6 the time. So.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that's the hope. And I without going into too much detail, I do have some contacts at Rivian. They're aware of everything I'm doing. And very supportive. I'll say that. Like, I fully anticipated it to be sort of an ominous relationship. Mostly because, I had an opportunity. My Rivian story is really interesting because I've had, and I think it's been through connections I've made with people like Isaiah and Jose and Chris Hilbert. Like, they've all given me tips and really brought me along in this journey. Like, I haven't owned my Rivian that long. It's been like 5 or 6 months.
You just said that, and I never even put 2 and 2 together that I've had mine longer than you.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of that credit goes to people like Isaiah, Chris, and Jose, who really brought me along in this community. It led me to some really interesting situations, like, meeting Brian Gase and Kenneth, and they gave me a demo of the R2 scroll wheels with no one else around. And at launch mode, I actually got to give a demo of Rivian Roamer to Wasim, who's their chief software. And I got to drive the R1T quad, which was a lot of fun. But I saw Wasim and he introduced himself, and I was like, oh, let me show you this thing I've built. And I recently posted a picture of it if you want to go see it. He was like looking around Rivian Roamer. And I anticipated a little bit of animosity. I got it. There we go. But they've been really supportive because I think they identify similar to what we talked about earlier, just different use case, right? I'm not taking away from what Rivian's trying to do. I think a lot of this is net new. This is not like attributed, right? Yeah. And I think they appreciate that. So I hope you're right. And they see what I'm doing. I'm like their little free test bed where I try stuff out. They're like, ooh, let's do that. Like, I fully anticipate a lot of the things I'm doing to appear on the shop sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. And I was thinking the same thing. And especially, I mean, it's not like you're running your own shop and like people are buying the inventory from you. Like, you still link out to them. So it's still driving traffic to their site. It's still, it's getting, thousands of people that would, be put off by the experience that they have of the shop and the state that it's in. And, not even being able to find a vehicle that they like because it's in another state or, over 50 miles away, I think it is, or whatever it is, now they're able to find it. They can call, sales or get on the chat in the app or on the website or like whatever, and be like, oh no, hey, I saw one, on the other side of the state from me or the next state over. And then, possibly there's a sale that they wouldn't have had if somebody just went to Rivian.com. So
absolutely. In fact, their sales staff uses it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just
now, I don't know if they still are, but I know right when they launched the dark out package, Rivian didn't have a way internally to find those vehicles. So their sales staff was like, "Hey, we've been using your site because we don't have a way to find it." So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's still bringing value to Rivian, and I hope moving forward we can continue to build a good relationship together. So yeah,
No, that's great. Yeah, it's awesome that they kind of, we'll say, unofficially support you and, like, haven't shut you down, or yeah. So I think that's awesome.
I've so been told if I do anything that upsets them, they will let me know first. So thank you, Rivian, because
Yeah,
I
for
mean I
sure.
am investing a lot of time. I haven't talked about this publicly, but I work 8-10 hours a day at my day job. I some days will spend my entire evening from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. working on Rivian Roamer, like every evening, every evening. And so it's been a big time investment. And I was a little hesitant. Recently, they changed their terms for the referral program around like using their trademark. And I was like, hey, am I good? And they're like, you're okay. I think they just wanted to make sure, like, I don't know if you've seen some people doing some things like buying ads on Google to drive. I think they just wanted to, stop that, which is fair.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'm not detracting away from them, and I hope to continue to add value both to the community and Rivian together. So yeah.
I'd actually be really curious to see what the numbers are. I mean, I'm sure there. I think that there's a way, and you can probably correct me if I'm wrong. But like, I'd be really curious to see the amount of sales that they've made that were referred from your site, regardless of using your referral code. Before,
I have
like,
some numbers I can share.
oh, okay,
So I know how many people have clicked on links that directly sent them to Rivian. In the last 20 days, 7,200 people, individual people, have clicked on a go to Rivian shop button. So I don't have any information on how many have converted into sales. I have numbers from referrals, but I've tried not to be too pushy with my referrals. In fact, anyone listening to this, please don't use mine. Use Zach or Isaiah's. If you use Rivian Roamer and you find a configuration you like and you click on the go to Rivian shop, and embeds my code, but please change it. You don't need to use mine. I've never asked anyone explicitly to use it if they don't want to. I support you using it how you see fit. And I think, Zach, you built the
code to adventure.
I forget what you called it. You changed the name recently.
Yeah, it used to be randomrivianreferral.co because I love
Yeah.
alliteration. But reading the same thing that you just mentioned when Rivian changed the terms and conditions, it kind of freaked me out, and I don't have as good of a relationship with Rivian as you do. So I changed it to codetoadventure.com. So
Yeah. So I would encourage people to check that out. Check out Zach, check out Isaiah's codes. Please use theirs. I know they provide a lot of value as well. But yeah, I mean, I have information on referrals I've seen. The conversion rate is, I'll talk about it publicly at some point. The reason I'm a little cautious about talking about publicly around the actual numbers now, mostly because I think a lot of the referrals I've seen there's a big spike in the beginning from the end of quarter incentives.
Yep.
And so the reason I don't want to talk about my numbers now is I don't want people to extrapolate and think that's going to be a long-term thing. I think it'll look like this big spike and then like a trickle after that. And so I'll probably talk about it at some point, but I did manage to I think I was the first to get to the retreat. So I hit 26. So thank you everyone that's used it. But like I said, don't feel the need. If there are others out there, please use theirs. Feel free to give back to anyone in the community by using the referral code. So yeah.
yeah. And if you, for some reason, don't want to use mine or Isaiah's, which you totally should, codetoadventure.com. We have over 100 community sourced, community inputted referral codes in there. If you don't like the one that pops up, you can always refresh the page and you'll get a new one, and you'll get to see a new color pop up in the banner as well. It's all the colors of the cars. So just a little.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So.
And I guess one thing I can announce now is I don't know the timing, mostly because I'm really trying to get the software update thing done. Zach was able to build a feature for me for Code to Adventure, and I'm integrating it into Rivian Roamer. So my way to give back to the community, I haven't figured out timing or everything, how this is going to work, but essentially it will rotate through that list of codes on Rivian Roamer to make sure that we can get the community referrals. Because I asked Rivian, I was like, this feels weird using other people's codes, but are you okay with it? And they're like, if it wouldn't be theirs, it would be yours. So sure, it's fine. So this is my way to give back to the community and everyone that's done something for me. So Rivian Roamer will rotate through codes. I don't want to say how I'm going to do it because I don't want people to beholden me to that, but sometime during a weekly time frame, you'll see codes go out, or maybe I'll do it for a week. I don't know yet, but it'll rotate through those codes. And I really appreciate Zach building that site.
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about it before I put it in, and it taught me a lot of new stuff that I didn't know, like how to implement an API on a website.
Oh, nice.
Which was like super easy. I was like, this is way too easy for it to actually work. But yeah, it did it, and you were able to get it connected, and thank you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty fun. Like that whole thing. So yeah. Isaiah's like, what's an API?
I'm glad you both have provided something of extreme value to the community. It's impressive. No, I'm serious. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I can explain an API to you.
Dude. You're the first out of the three of us.
The way I explain this to everyone real quick. It'll take me 2 seconds, and I think it will help you. Imagine a car. The steering wheel and the pedals are the API. That is the interface that something that is different, you, a human, interfaces with the vehicle. You don't know what it's doing when you turn the wheel, but you know if you turn it right, it goes right. That's an API.
I see the wheels turning.
I feel like I'm trying to put the entire software development as a whole in like referencing to a car. So then I'm thinking of like, okay, the entire interface. Well, wouldn't that be the front end? Like the
interface is also an API. It's just an API for humans.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What is API? We're learning a lot here, guys. This is not just Rivian conversation.
We should probably get back on topic. We don't want to talk about Porsches, right?
You're getting an education, application programming interface. Okay. Listen, you know what?
It's a way to integrate two pieces of software.
Okay.
It's how software basically talks to each other.
Yep.
Hold me to this, okay? I will. Khan Academy's free, guys. I'm gonna start this week. I'm gonna get
nice.
Cool.
I'm completely self-taught. I don't have a computer science degree. If I can do it, you can do it.
Wow. Yeah. Journalism degree. I learned all.
Yep.
Crash course.
There you go. I have a business degree, so
yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm like, I'm not the best at it because I only did it for about 1.5 years, and then I was like, nope, I'm out. But yeah.
It's been really interesting. I think one thing I would say anyone like this is relevant to Rivian. I promise anyone who's listening, we're not going to talk about Porsches. A good way to get into something is to find something you're passionate about, and for me, that was Rivian. Combining those two things made it easy. So if anyone's ever looking for a hobby, combine something you're interested in doing with something you're passionate about, and success will follow. And so Isaiah, I mean, you've shown massive success with your X account. And you do a really good job with the imagery and stories and everything you provide. Like, you hold a very high bar. I think that's how people need to approach these types of things. In fact, I was in Rivian Roamer. In fact, in my approach to launching features was inspired heavily by Isaiah's very high quality bar. Oh. For anyone who hasn't seen his posts, like, he doesn't rush to get things out there. Isaiah's methodical and careful in the best way possible, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm blushing. I'm like,
whether or not you intentionally do it, it doesn't go unnoticed.
No, dude, you were, and I'll just pile on top of it. You were like the first Rivian website that I came across, and like Twitter account that I got all my info from and all my news. So,
thank you. It was just me and Ryan from the Kilowatts for a while, and he actually had a Rivian, so it was just me and him like conversating back and forth of just, what's this in the vehicle like? I hadn't even been I didn't think I've even seen a Rivian at this point. I'm doing Rivian updates, and the beginning was definitely interesting, and I love that the position I've had to be able to see it kind of grow, and to where we have just entire like influencers built around this, to see something like Rivian Roamer. I mean, even down to Jose Rivian Tracker, an entire website built about this, to people like Chris who have entire following, people who really know him. It's very interesting to just see how much it's grown, and that just 3 years ago it was
It
nothing.
didn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been great. Like, I feel like everyone in the community contributes back in some way. I think you had mentioned like earlier, in the Tesla community, but I would argue it's even better. And I'm not detracting from Tesla. I love Tesla still. My girlfriend has a Tesla. I think it's a great vehicle, great brand. They're doing amazing things. But I think they managed to pull in a certain type of person that I haven't found anywhere else. Like, I go to Emerald City Rivian Club events, and I've never seen a group of people so helpful. And it's been really eye opening and fantastic. Like, people there are like using their vehicles for good. Like, Michael's story out of Asheville with him and his R1, right? Like,
Yeah.
it somehow pulls in a certain type of person, and I hope that type of culture that Rivian's built in their customer base continues through their growth with R2 and R3.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about exactly what you were just saying the other night, because like with all my work with the Bay Area Rivian Club and being kind of like the face of it, it's afforded me a lot of really interesting opportunities too. Like tomorrow, Saturday, October 12th, we're doing an event in Vallejo, California, which is just a little bit south of me. So it's kind of in between like San Francisco and Napa, where I'm at. I got invited from the NorCal Mach E Club, Owners Club. Like,
Nice.
yeah. So like I met the girl that runs it. Her name's Sophie. So it's them. It's the Bay Area F-150 Lightning Owners Club, or the Bay Area Lightning Owners Club. Shout out to Chris over there. You can check him out at Bow Family. I forgot what it is. He's awesome. They're going to be there. Obviously, Bay Area Rivian Club. Tesla of East Bay, Tesla owners of East Bay are going to be there. We got the BMW i3 Club that's going to be there.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even know that existed.
Right.
And then Sophie messaged me the other day, and she ran into somebody that had one of the new GMC EVs, and so like she invited him. So like being able to meet all these people and like have experiences that like I never thought would be possible. Like we're going to this place called Kindred Motor Works, where they take vintage Broncos from like the 70s and 80s and convert them to EVs. And they did it for
That's
VW
awesome.
buses and like all this stuff. So they are open. They're hosting a Cars and Coffee. They're providing the coffee and all the snacks and everything for all of us. And then they're giving us a tour of the factory and showing us how they do everything. And I'm just like, first off, I didn't even know this place existed. And then second off, like, how awesome is this? Like,
Yeah.
like last weekend we did an event at there's a state park here, and there's an observatory like with 3 giant telescopes. And so we got to camp in front of so we went, they opened up all 3 telescopes just for us. It was like a private event. We had 15 Rivians there, and like their owners and families and stuff. And all the volunteers were there. One of the head guys gave talks on stuff like about black holes and dark matter and dark energy and like terrestrials, and like 20-minute talks on all this stuff, and like would answer questions, and like he would actually have to stop himself because he's like, I need to stop myself because I want to explain this in a way that you guys will be able to understand it. He's like, I can give you the scientific like and all the big words, and he did an amazing job. And it was just like, and we got to camp out in front of it because it's in the middle of a state park. So like they have a campground. My first time ever camping, and we did it in the back of the truck. Like I have a tent that fits in the back. Like I never thought in a million years I'd be doing any of that. And then, here I am, part of the Rivian community, hosting a Rivian podcast, with you guys, obviously, who are more important in the Rivian community than I am. And
Wow.
like, it's just awesome.
No.
Like yeah, sorry.
Well, I think that it all
It's
comes
been
from
great.
this just one vehicle brand. To think like
Yeah.
so
2
many
cars,
of the people
2
I've
models.
met. Yeah, it's absurd to me. I mean, the amount of information and advice. I mean, there's like this joke because the age thing is so interesting. But being 19 and I think being involved in the financial space, and there are a lot of questions I have about things, and I'm meeting people who have done this 100 times already, and being able to have them, walk me through certain processes, even getting my Rivian lease. I had so many questions, and I was able to, there's an entire community out there who's able to instruct me. There are people that I'm able to depend on. There are people who, if I need some obscure thing, help with something, they're able to do it. And it's all because we're involved in, this car brand based in the middle of Illinois. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's awesome because there's so many people from all different walks of life that are in the community as well. So like what you were just saying, like where even if it's not even Rivian related, you can reach out to somebody in the Rivian community, and eventually you will get the answer that you're looking for, and they're always willing to help and jump in and do whatever, and it's awesome. And it does remind me a lot of the Tesla community in the very beginning, because I had a 2014 Model S, so I was one of the first people to own mine in Tennessee.
Wow.
Actually, I was one of like 5 people in Tennessee that owned a Tesla. I was the only one in Nashville, and we were like, I tried to start a Tesla owners club in the Tennessee Tesla owners club, and I literally had a note in Apple Notes of 7 people. And I was the only one in Nashville. Everybody else was in Knoxville, Memphis. But we would talk all the time. Like we would text each other, and like Facebook Messenger, I think, was the thing at the time. So we were using that, and it felt like this community as a whole feels like that 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and it's bigger, so which is awesome.
Yeah, too.
God, I can't believe that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, it is kind of how fast time has gone. And I think kind of back to the I-90 surge, seeing this in real time, I mean, depending on when this episode comes out, I won't spoil anything, but I think everyone knows that the old Model S came in dead last. But compared to the other EVs, the amount of time that it took, the old Model S compared to these newer EVs, it's astonishing, because in just 10 years, how much infrastructure has changed, how much the knowledge, the community, so much has happened between now and then. And although 10 years is a lot, it's also like, I mean, who am I? I've only lived 2 10-year periods, but it's not
say it's more
than
half.
Yeah, it's more than half my life. But it's still like not a lot of time, and so much has grown. The community has grown so much, EV community, and Rivian has grown at a faster pace than definitely Tesla has at the same period. And it's awesome to see where this community has ended up. But
yeah, I'm really excited to see where it's going too. And we're gonna have all the new Gen 2 owners, and then once R2 opens up, like I hope it doesn't end up like Tesla when they released the Model 3, but I don't think that the people that are doing that are. Anyway, I'm not gonna go down that path. But yeah, it's just gonna be really awesome to see what this community looks like in like 5 years.
Yeah, I suspect they'll continue. Like some of what we see comes from just scale. It's hard to maintain that closeness with scale. And so that'll be interesting. But I do think this whole like keep the world adventurous forever, I think is what's underpinning a lot of this. Because while some people may use a Rivian as a commute vehicle, I know a lot of people use it as their Costco hauler, and that's fine. Not saying anyone shouldn't. It's a great vehicle for that. It's huge. But I think what they build it for, like RJ talks a lot about how they overspec'd it. They over-engineered it to do much more than that. Like I've been a passenger off-roading, but I've never off-roaded in my life. And I went up a 24-degree incline on the road tires with no drama.
Yep.
And like I get up to the top of the hill and people are like, we've never seen a Rivian up here. Like people in a Jeep parked at the bottom of the hill because they didn't want to go up the hill. And I just went straight up it and it was fine. And so like these vehicles make it more make us more capable of doing these adventure things. So I really appreciate that they're embracing that. And it's baked into everything. It's not just their mission. It's like the product and it's the community and it's like it's all part of it. And I really appreciate that it's not like some verbiage. It's in like a HR handbook that you throw in a drawer and never see again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that you can go buy the base, absolute base, spend the least amount of money, you know, the $65,000 R1T, and do exactly what you just said. Take you know, take it up a mountain and go places that even Jeeps can't go is astonishing. So it's a true testament to what RJ and his team built, and you know, the community for pushing the boundaries and making them want to do better things, and you know, and actually listening to us too, which is really cool. So
yeah. I mean, it's not all rainbows and puppy dogs. I always tell people this: if you can't be critical of a brand, I think you don't have credibility.
Yep.
And there's certainly things Rivian needs to do better. And you know, service being one of them, especially you live in a dense area. Like even now, I wanted to get a rattle fixed. 5 months seems excessive, but you know, those are solvable problems. I think what's important is that they are focused on their customers with like Michael's story for anyone who hasn't been following and what they did for him. I think the rest will come. And Rivian does seem like they really care. And I know a lot of people like to nitpick their financials. And I know this isn't the episode for that, and this is your episode, so I'm not going to drive this conversation. But I do think it's interesting that if you look at what they're focused on, that's what's important.
Yep.
Every company started unprofitable. When I started at the company, and I'll just say it, I work at Amazon. When I started at Amazon, everyone was saying, because they weren't profitable yet.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, Amazon's going to go bankrupt. Amazon's going to go bankrupt. I joined in 2011. They're like, they're never going to make it. What are they doing? They're just spending all this money. Now look at them, right? And so when you focus on your customer and you work backwards from there, the rest just kind of happens.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing that. So
yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
As you're both were saying, it's caked into, it's not just in some handbook, it's caked into the hardware of the vehicle. Everything down to the design is really what Rivian is about. And I think when you compare it to, I mean, no bashing here, but like Lucid, they have built something that on an engineering scale, insane efficiency, insane motors. Everything is just excellent. But from a just from a vehicle standpoint, I don't know what makes it so different for Rivian, but just this lifestyle of owning a Rivian, it has totally created this community that we see today, and it has affected how people view the company, and it affects sales, and it literally has turned Rivian into what we see today. And yeah, I hope that doesn't get, I don't think it will. I hope it doesn't get lost with like R2 and R3. You know, I think I see a Subaru, and I feel like I see Subaru owners, and they all have the same kind of like, there's a demographic there, and I hope we see that for Rivian. You know, they can still be a giant company, but you know, who you see driving them, it is really like this archetype of person. And I'm also curious to see how R2 and R3 are in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It seems like at this point with R3, we'll talk about the news in a second, but you know, when with what Rivian Roamer will be doing, you know, the amount of people who will, I think everything's being established today. Everything you see now is, you know, the flooring. What do you call the concrete of like a building?
The foundation.
Foundation. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much. It's the foundation for what will be, you know, such important parts to a brand and a community of hundreds of thousands of people when Rivian is selling hundreds of thousands of cars annually. And so, you know, seeing the framework now, and I'm just excited to see what this will look like, you know, in a couple years, because it'll be so different.
All right. So speaking of Michael, just for the people that don't know, and I'm going to bring up Twitter over here because I could not remember his last name. Michael Cusick lives in Asheville, North Carolina. And if you all haven't seen the story on, I think it was Business Insider and a couple other websites picked it up as well. He lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and he during not the last hurricane, but the one before it, the week before,
Helene.
I forgot the name.
Helene.
Helene. Okay, that was Helene. What was the? Oh, that
Yep,
was
Helene. Milton was the one in
Milton. That's
Florida.
what it was. Yeah, because he needed his red stapler. I saw that sign. Anyway, sorry. Hurricane Helene, when it went through North Carolina, flooded where he lived and literally picked up his R1T and carried it about 100 yards and changed it from blue to brown.
It's a new Rivian color.
Yeah,
It is
it's
green
it's
now.
dirt brown, like, and it was really cool, like paint. But the crazy thing about his story was, even though like you can see his truck is literally from like wheel to roof covered with mud, um, none of the water or mud or dirt got inside the truck, and it still works. So the crazy thing about his story was, and we can kind of get into a little bit of the behind the scenes because Chad, you had some help with this. Rivian basically came and picked up his truck, gave him a loaner so that way he can continue doing volunteer work with the cleanup and rescue efforts throughout the Asheville area.
Yep.
If you can talk a little bit about how that came about and kind of like the small part that you played in that.
Yeah. So Chris Hilbert, which I'm sure a lot of you follow, managed to get a hold of Michael after he saw this story and reached out. Chris reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we got to do something for this guy." And I saw it, and I think it was like late in the evening. Like I was about to go to bed, and I was like, "All right, I have some contacts at Rivian. Let me reach out to them." And I started messaging people. I was like, "Hey, can we get this guy's truck serviced? I think he's still using it to like help people out. Like he's delivering water to people that don't have water." And I was like, outside of it just being the right thing to do, like it's pretty good goodwill opportunity for Rivian, right? It's like a win-win. And within 15 minutes, all 5 of my contacts responded. And they're like,
Wow.
get me his information. I was like, okay. Now, most of the contacts asked to not be named. One of them was Wasim, by the way, their chief of software. And he was like, get me his cell phone. We'll make something happen. So he was asleep. I woke up the next day and Chris Hilbert had got me his contact information. I forwarded it to Wasim. Wasim immediately called him.
Wow.
And said, hey, we're going to figure something out. I'm in touch with the service center. They were originally just going to pick up his truck. And then Michael messaged me and he goes, wait, no. I need a truck. Like, I think he either works for, I'm not sure, but he's related to Crisis Response International, which if you're looking to donate, highly recommend.
Yeah.
They have a specific fund set up for the people of Asheville. So go check that out. But he was like, I'm using the truck for this purpose. Like I need a truck. Like I would rather just not give it back to them. And I went back to Rivian. I was like, hey, can we get him a loaner? And they're like, that's a really good idea. So yeah, they trailered him a loaner. He has a dual motor. They brought him a quad motor with all-terrain tires and gave him the truck and took away his truck and said, we will service it and make sure it's in tip-top shape and everything's good to go before we give it back to you. So
that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. And the really cool thing is, and thank you for doing this for us as well, we will actually, it might come on before this episode comes out or it might come out after, but we're actually going to have Michael on. He agreed to sit down with us and talk about his experience with the hurricane, with the cleanup efforts, as well as his experience dealing with Rivian and everything they did. So stay tuned for that. Not at this episode, like, you know what I mean? Stay tuned to the channel. We're going to have him on. So I'm really excited about that. He was supposed to come on during this episode as well. And basically, he's out doing volunteer work and he's living out of his truck, which is insane to me. So he didn't want to like be in his truck and on a computer or on his phone. So he wanted to be on a computer. So we agreed to like give him a little bit more than 10 minutes because he was going to do it on a break in between when he was working. So, keep an eye out on everything for when he's on as well. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One thing Michael has been doing is with all this media attention and everything that's happened, he prioritizes his volunteer work and everything he's been doing.
Yeah.
Like obviously he could have had his truck just serviced and handled, but he was like, no, I need my truck. And I really appreciate that people like that are willing to say, no, this is more important and do that, especially when there are people in need.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I said. Cause he reached out to me again. Thanks to Chad for hooking that up. And he's like, "Hey, Chad said that you wanted me on as a guest." He's like, "I'd love to do it." I'm like, "Cool." We're actually recording a show. Actually, when did you reach out to me? Wednesday night. We're doing one on Friday. He's like, "Oh well, I volunteer. I'm still volunteering 8 to 4, like the whole thing." And I'm like, say no more. If you get a day off, like we can do it on a weekend or like, at night if you don't mind doing it, like whatever. And then sparked off that conversation that I just mentioned. And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm 100% down. That's so great. Thank you so much." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, thank you for everything." So yeah, I envy the work that he's doing out there. Like that's crazy. And like the pictures that he's posting on X are insane of what's happening out there and what he's working on. So yeah.
Yeah, it's insane what I think. And I don't know if people have seen the damage, and I'm sure by now you've seen the damage that Helene has caused. But for your car to be lifted up and go 100 feet out, I don't remember
100
if 100 yards. Yeah, sorry. I don't know. Michael said he had evacuated and he came back, but I remember he said he left his R1T, right? And when he came back, it was in a totally different spot. And I think it's funny because Zach was saying he's like, truck is blue, and I'm like, no, it's so covered in mud. His original truck was actually green, and then the new truck he got was blue.
His new truck his loaner is blue.
Yeah, his loaner.
Okay, I didn't pay attention. Okay, it was green.
He had a side-by-side picture of the loaner in his.
I don't think anyone would have noticed the color because it was so caked in mud.
I never paid attention.
It was a brown.
Hey, I always get one fact wrong on every episode, so there's that one.
It was pretty much a brown truck, and so but I think it's crazy. I mean, the interior was immaculate. All of the interior was just clean, straight from water, and I think, the amount of flooding that happened. Again, crazy what Rivian has built on the vehicle side, and I'm so happy that they were able to. Thank you, Chad, for being able to connect him with Rivian, and I mean being able for Rivian to get to him and get him a different vehicle. And still the demographic that Rivian advertises to, for someone to still, want to volunteer and use their capable vehicle to, help his community. I think that's just absolutely amazing. And it's a great story to see. I mean, I'm very active on Rivian LinkedIn and what's being posted, and it's just amazing seeing all of the employees talk about it, and just how happy they are seeing that they're able to not only reach out to him, but that the vehicle is able to sustain something like that. So it's a beautiful story.
Yeah. It's a great story from like a humanitarian aspect. And then, to kind of go the opposite direction, it's a true testament to what we were just talking about too, with the engineering and the build quality of the cars and, the design that went into making something where you can do that. And yeah, we've all seen the videos of the guys in the Florida Rivian Club going, through the through the river or whatever that was. But like, this is something completely different. Like this is, it's what the trucks are like almost 6 feet tall, right? Like from ground up.
Yeah.
And to have the entire thing covered in mud, and then a 7,000-pound truck with all the weight of the water pressure as well on top of it, lifted and moved 100 yards, and then it still works.
What's crazy, and I haven't seen many people talk about this, if you actually look where the mud line was, it was the whole truck.
Yeah.
Like his entire windows are caked. And so it wasn't just it went up to the 43 inches or whatever our cars are capable of. It did the whole thing. It engulfed it, right? Yep. And the fact that he was not only able to still drive it, but if you follow his story, he was like cutting down trees and moving them and using the outlets in the back and everything. Like he was using it like nothing ever happened, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I mean, to like bring this back to what we were talking about earlier with the culture, I do have a message. Wasim didn't ask me to do this, but I asked if I could share the message he sent me because I thought it talked a lot about, Wasim being in a leadership position at Rivian, how they see this. And he said, "This type of story is what makes me deeply believe that Rivian will eventually win. What matters the most is the product and the customers. The rest, we will figure it out."
I love it.
And I didn't ask him. He just sent me that out of the blue. And he was like, this was the right thing to do. And I really appreciate that, like, no one made me feel like I was bothering them. They were like, no, this is something we need to do. We need to help him.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And whew, okay, moving on because I'm getting a little emotional thinking about that. Yeah, that's amazing. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So I think we'll kind of I want to move this into, I guess, finish it off with news, and it's kind of fun having a guest here, right? This being Chad, and get his full opinion on things, and of course we can get that online. Of course, his link's in the description, but we're getting the live experience here. So I wanted to touch on Rivian's Halloween updates, and I guess what you guys think? It for me, this again sounds horrible. I've never seen Knight Rider. I'm sorry. And I have not sorry. I've not seen Back to the Future either. The whole entire thing. I've seen like in chunks. So
I need to leave.
Hey, Chad, you want to come host a podcast
sorry.
with me?
Yeah.
I got an opening.
I'm so sorry, but I get it, right? I get the lore. I have a full understanding of the movies, and I think it's so cool that we're seeing this. What is it with Halloween and Rivian? Because it's not Christmas. They don't do this Christmas. They don't do this April Fools. They don't do this Valentine's Day. They don't do this Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever. Just Halloween. We have this really like fun emphasis on what the vehicles are able to do. So I mean, kind of put in context here. Oh,
I just want to take half a second to be like, we need to have a Thanksgiving update where the horn turns into a turkey.
Oh my god, it would be better than the current
one. Exactly. No, I with the I guess dressing up the cars for Knight Rider or Back to the Future. First off, the what's the word I'm looking for? My inner child loves it because Back to the Future is top 3 favorite movies of all time, like 1, 2, and 3. The fact that I have a personal connection to both of these, just from when I grew up as well. If you all don't follow me on X, Twitter, whatever, I share a lot of stuff about Universal Studios. It's because I grew up at Universal Studios. And I don't mean that figuratively. I mean that literally. My dad eventually was the senior vice president of development for what is now Universal Creative. He was, and this is why Back to the Future, I'm really pissed that I can't get it on my car. One of the very last attractions that he ever produced at Universal Studios before he left was the Back to the Future ride in both Florida and Hollywood.
I've ridden on that.
Yeah. If you go to either one of those parks now, it's the Simpsons ride.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, he was, I've spent many nights in a soundstage with Christopher Lloyd dressed up as Doc Brown and Tom Wilson dressed up as Biff, running around screaming at each other. And you can see the video as the pre-show video and all the Q-Line videos. Like, anyway, so my inner child absolutely loves that, because they also did have a kit car that you could go in, and they actually had like an actor and you can interact with it, and that was like one of my favorite things to do. And then once I realized that it was actually a guy sitting like in the trunk of the car, and then getting to meet all those guys, it was kind of fun. But I think it's really cool. I love the fact that they're doing that. Now with the Gen 2 stuff, going back to what you were saying, now that I've kind of gone off on a tangent, now with the lights and everything in the Gen 2, and also the fact now that we can change the interior lighting on the Gen 1s, I don't see why they couldn't do something like a Valentine's Day update and, do like pink bars and pink lighting on the inside. And, like it opens up a lot of possibilities. So,
yeah.
I think Halloween to me makes sense because like it's a little adventure-y of all the holidays, right? Like I feel like about thinking of going like getting pumpkins and going to the farm and stuff like that. Like I feel like it's a little bit more than just being at home. And so it kind of makes sense. And they wanted to do something different. And I think it's fun and the kids will enjoy it. And I mean, I'll enjoy it. I am a little sad about the Gen 2 stuff, but it's okay.
So no, I'll say that as well. It's not to kill the vibe, but it's also one of the non-religious and Americanized holidays. So from a more broad perspective, I mean,
Unless you're pagan.
Yeah, right. Unless you're pagan.
Yeah.
So across the world, Halloween is celebrated. So I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's Halloween's a good holiday. But the idea for the turkey gobble instead of the instead of the just regular chirp, that is like there's so many opportunities for birds here, guys. July 4th, we got to get
I
an
didn't even think
eagle.
of the lock. I didn't even think.
Like,
Oh,
There's
whoa.
just
Yeah.
Oh, is that you guys? What were you guys thinking of?
He
I
meant
was
the
thinking
horn.
horn.
Oh, the horn. Yeah, no. I'm thinking. Sorry, the
But
chirp
why
of
not
the lock.
both?
Well, why not?
Yeah.
Why not both,
Yeah.
or why not the
Why not
chirp?
both?
Because that's just software, whereas the horn kind of
Yeah.
isn't for regulatory issues.
Right.
Yeah.
So much can be changed. There's so much opportunity. But what I guess I will give a little context. So in Rivian's Halloween software update, they'll be introducing Knight Rider and it seems Back to the Future software updates. We don't have a ton of information of what that's going to look like implementation wise, but we've gotten some teasers. And specifically for the Knight Rider, it seems that the vehicle lights right in the new Gen 2 Rivians, and it seems it will only be a Gen 2 software integration with these movies. But because the Gen 2s have those like segmented lights, it's very similar to, I guess, like Knight Rider. And so they're able to, kind of play a gag on the actual movie. And same thing for Back to the Future. I imagine we'll see implementation from the software to the sounds, the imagery, the entire, UI experience will be just really oriented around Knight Rider and Back to the Future. And I'm sure you'll be able to kind of switch between the two. But software is such an endless thing. So many possibilities.
Yeah, I can't wait to see
Yeah.
the implementation of both of them on the inside of the cars, because both Kit and the DeLorean from Back to the Future have iconic interiors as well. And of course, with Kit being able to talk, like, I hope that's implemented in some way,
Yeah.
which would be awesome.
Ooh,
That'd be so fun.
that'd be fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I could see like the center display and like the Back to the Future mode being the time circuits, and then like the driver dash turns into the DeLorean dashboard. I don't know how they're going to do the exterior lighting, so that'll be interesting to me. But yeah, and then obviously Kit with the iconic red dash line across the front, like
Yeah.
And then
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I hope they don't. I mean, I know they did this last year. I don't know if they'll do it this year, but I hope they don't time lock it as short. Like it feels like a lot of effort to put into something to only have it be available for a short amount of time.
it's like leave it on the car like Tesla did with
like why not?
Yeah.
Like have it be a fun thing, right? Like because Knight Rider isn't Halloween.
Yeah.
But Back to the Future isn't Halloween.
Yeah. No, that's
so
fantastic.
Maybe they're coming out as part of the Halloween update, and I don't know anything. I'm speculating. Maybe they'll allow us to keep it long term. Who knows?
I'm actually kind of curious, like from a business perspective, because those are both Universal properties. So does that mean that Rivian now has a partnership with Universal, and could that lead to other things? Because I don't know. There's a Jurassic Park movie coming out in July, so could we see a Jurassic Park update? Because those explorers,
imagine a Velociraptor for the
If you lock your car, it's like a raptor scream or Tyrannosaurus, like a T-Rex growl. There's a lot going on there. Just saying.
But they definitely have a relationship, because at the end, both of the trailers for both Knight Rider and Back to the Future, at the very bottom, at the end, it was like Warner Brothers, and this is Warner Brothers IP, blah 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 blah. So I think there's
TV, I think for Knight Rider, but it's a Universal property. Like Universal owns it.
I know they're just one giant conglomerate. So
no, don't ever say that. Warner Brothers.
No. You're not. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. Again, haven't watched the movie, so yeah, I feel like I've cardinal sin there. Maybe. Sorry.
No. At least you didn't say Disney, because then I'd have to like fly to Florida and punch you. Because
what do you mean? Wait, I thought Disney made Back to the Future. I'm joking. I'm clearly joking. I'm joking.
You're gonna give me an
joking. I'm so joking.
No, there was back in the 80s and 90s, they had the theme park wars, and it was between Disney and Universal, which is why if you go to like Disney Hollywood Studios, I think that's what they call it now. It used to be called Disney MGM Studios, and they had a backlot tram tour that was very similar to Universal Studios in Hollywood. Just saying. So, like, that kicked it off,
I
and then
need some
that's
more
why
research.
Universal has a park in Florida and Hollywood, and like you'll see them all. Like, there's a whole book written on it, and like my dad's quoted in it a bunch of times, and people like that he worked with. It's called the Disney War or something like that. It's a great book. So,
That is
or
interesting.
is that Michael Eisner's book? I don't remember. Jesus. Anyway, sorry. Let's talk
Sorry,
about
I'm also
Rivian.
educating myself. I'm like looking things up here. I'm like, oh, these are totally separate. Yeah, totally separate things. But yeah, that's for the Halloween
Oh, and
update.
by the way, can I also mention really quick before we move on
Yeah.
that I absolutely love that David Hasselhoff was in the Knight Rider video.
Mm-hmm.
So
He was the primary actor, by the way, Isaiah.
he was the
I
lead.
mean,
He was
I
Michael
get that.
Knight of Knight.
I know. Clearly, I know that. When he popped up, I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay, I get the
Did you know who
connection there.
Did you know who he was before you saw that,
I
or
mean,
did you never?
no, I mean, I can clearly guess, like, oh, they have this guy who's in the trailer connected to the
Did you ever hear
car.
of Baywatch
Most
and
likely,
not the one with the
he's
Rock? Have you ever heard of
6.
Baywatch?
Yeah, I've seen original Baywatch.
Okay, because he was in
Yeah.
that too.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
it's coming together. Yeah. I'm so
You gotta look up his music career too, but and the cheeseburger incident.
what?
Anyway, and
What?
just
Jeez.
they,
Okay.
not now, but like, well,
Later on.
now. But just look up David Hasselhoff and cheeseburger.
I will I will do that after this. I think it's funny having this connection of generations because so much of especially the EV community that I know, I didn't know there were so many people like in around my age group who were involved in the EV community. And there's so many like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 year olds. And just this thing connecting us and millennials and Gen X like going on. It's like it's funny here. So
yeah.
All different perspectives. But yeah, that was the main. I think the main piece of.
Is that really the only news?
No, I mean we had Amazon to deploy 1,000 Rivian vans with their vision assisted, like package retrieval.
That's cool.
And so I mean Chad, I don't know if you know much about this being in the Amazon world. It's not in that I'm looking for extra news, but that I didn't read into it much.
I know of it. That's about as much as I can share. Like I had details on it before, which was really painful to have the intersection of like the thing I professionally do and the thing I love doing, and then not being able to talk about that. But I had seen this in the past, so it was a little sucked to not be able to talk about it publicly.
It's going to turn out that he was the one that actually developed the whole thing.
No, I do much boring things.
No, I don't have anything to do with that.
Honestly, like I feel like I'd get in trouble working on Rivian
I'm
Roamer if I was involved with Rivian stuff at Amazon.
Yeah,
it'd be a bit.
That's pretty cool though. Like I'm really curious to see the delivery driver experience and how they feel about it.
Yeah,
I mean they already love driving the EDV to begin with.
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious to see the reliability of it and how well it actually works, and then what they think. So
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, that's a good idea for a guest. We should get that guy that like has a YouTube channel that is his primary like truck.
I know
he
you're talking
drives for
about
Amazon. Yeah, I forgot what his name is.
I think he works for Rivian now, so I don't.
Does he really?
Yeah, he quit Amazon. I think he works as there's a YouTuber who a lot of his videos blew up, giving the experience of what it's like to be a Rivian Amazon EDV driver. And yeah, I think he quit being an Amazon driver and he's now a Rivian sales advisor, field sales advisor, so working at
Oh,
spaces
nice.
and service and stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if he would still be willing to talk, but that's a good idea.
Because I wouldn't have him on now, knowing that he works for Rivian. It might be,
Yeah.
but we wouldn't talk about working at Rivian. We talk about working at Amazon, and now that he doesn't work there, he can talk about it more. So, it'd be
But
interesting. Anyway,
I'll
sorry,
give
something to think.
everyone. No, go ahead.
Or if he listens, like reach out.
Yeah, yeah. I think he follows me. I'll have to look, but just for an
Yeah.
idea of what this is, and so it's called Vapor, and so this is their vision assisted package retrieval, and use advanced computer vision and AI to identify packages for each stop. So imagine the EDV is driving through a neighborhood. When it gets close to the stop, it will kind of put that package forward so it's easier for the delivery driver to simply just grab the package and deliver it, drop it off. Don't think many people know, but in these vans, it's just, a mix of packages. And although there is some order to it, a lot of times they do have to specifically find that package, and that does take some time. And so this will help save a lot of time just by the package being found. It's right there in front of them. They can grab it, deliver it, and that cuts down the amount of time that it takes for them to, be stuck looking for a package. So I think that's a pretty cool implementation.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever see those videos too of like the Amazon delivery drivers, like they sort their own packages. Like they have to go through each like bins of packages and sort them all themselves. So now they'll be able to have more packages and be able to get them out easier and less mistakes. So
Yeah. Efficiency. It all increases in efficiency. And this world of AI is interesting. Seeing so much be able to be, it's all in the name of efficiency. Everything be changed with AI. Oh, also, I think I guess we could probably, there's some news with Uber. So some Rivian Ubers will be available. Gen 2 Tri-Motor R1Ts are now on the shop. You can check those on Rivian Roamer. That's where I first saw it. Yeah, and I think the big thing we could probably end it on here is Q3 delivery numbers. And so this is a pretty big topic. Now, the last time we filmed our episode was like right before the hurricane, so it's been like a while since we've filmed. So this is kind of it's a while ago now. This Q3 production delivery report, but I think it's worth talking about. So I just want to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. If you're able to share that as well, Chad, is this something you're able to talk about?
Yeah. I can say I think the numbers. I don't think anyone thinks they were great. It was a little disappointing to see some of those numbers. I'm curious to understand the reasoning behind it because it did seem like they were selling quite a few vehicles. I think we have to remember, when did Q3 start? Is it July? Right? Yeah, July.
Yeah.
And so that was shortly after like the factory reopening and everything. And there was a weird mix of like lease incentives and then I think some sticker shock from the Gen 2 lease prices and just vehicle prices, right? Like the tries are more expensive than the quads were. So like there's some interesting things happening. I hope Rivian is able to figure it out through Q4 because I think right now the biggest tension they're going to have is trying to hit their, if anyone knows the quote, like shoot the gap, right? They have to hit their delivery estimate targets with being gross profit positive because they've been saying that for 6 quarters now. The way they move deliveries is incentives, which hurts their profitability. So it'll be interesting to see how they like tweak everything to make this happen. But yeah, I think Q3 was kind of a surprise. I had guessed more than 50% of what they did. And I think everyone called me out for being optimistic, but from what I had saw and like all the big deliveries, like, I think we saw some pictures of like 60 to 70 deliveries from one service center in one day.
Yeah.
To only like 10,080 or whatever it was. Like, it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it was. I feel the same way Chad does. Like that kind of blew me away. That like, because you see, like it just seemed like everybody was taking delivery of a new, like every 5 seconds there's like, oh my god, I just got a new Gen 2 R1S, whatever, and then they come out with the numbers that were like super low, like, and then it kind of, I'm gonna guess it's gonna lead into the next thing that you wanted to talk about with like the supply issue with the copper and all of that for the motors.
Yeah. So a manufacturer who, and then this was actually a speculation. I've heard other reports saying that this is not exact, but that I guess the copper winding within the motors has like sorry there was a miscommunication between Rivian Logistics and this company that provides right the copper windings for the motors, and so you have this part, the motor. I mean, this is what drives the vehicle, and there is this blockage, right? They can't build these anymore without this certain component. And unlike most manufacturers who, if they have a key component, they'll use multiple manufacturers who will build this component just in case something happens, right? They don't want any bottlenecks. But in this case, Rivian only uses one supplier. And so this one supplier doesn't supply them with this product. It's going to affect the entire supply chain and production of their vehicles. So look, I'm glad it's happening now. And I'm looking at this kind of from a bright side, that Rivian is able to see the effects of what miscommunication has. And so when, things start ramping up, when we do get R2, they remember, Q3 2024, what happened, guys? And they're fully able to understand and kind of correct this and make sure that in the future that they have the right things in order to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But yeah, it just seems like there's a big miscommunication. From what I've seen, I'm always sleuthing and looking through everywhere. I was on Facebook yesterday, and an employee who I guess works with the Enduro motors, he said the Enduro line's down, and this was yesterday. So I have no idea how much has happen versus today or within the next week, but it still seems that there is a supply issue. Hopefully that sums it up. That was a lot there.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Elon. Someone said you're only as fast as your slowest supplier.
Yep.
That's a
right.
perfect quote.
Supply chain's very difficult, and it's really disappointing to hear that this is happening, especially with the Enduro motors, which I think is the majority of their sales that are happening right now. Also, I believe the Enduro motors are in the RCV and EDV, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting to see how this shakes out, though. It does look like they have a pretty big buffer on those. So
yeah, they produced a lot of those, which is kind of interesting to me that like they produced all those and then they're just kind of sitting there, and then Amazon picked up a bunch of them and now they're not, and now they have this issue, and then it's just like, I don't know. So
yeah, I think from Rivian's standpoint, commercial customers aren't as picky. Like they're not going to care about rattles. They're not going to care about misaligned panels. So like you can produce them and let them sit there. No one's really going to care other than the depreciation hit they take on their books. Like kind of makes sense. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this supply chain thing shakes out for Q4 when deliveries are going to be so critical for Rivian.
yeah.
Awesome.
I think we'll probably see the same numbers at the end of Q4 that we did for Q3. So
I think so as
my
well.
prediction.
So
really
far,
low.
And then watch it flip.
That'd be amazing.
Just get 20,000 produced.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the 10,000 includes the commercial vans. And so it's not just consumer vehicles. So if Amazon were to take a bunch, we could see 15,000 potentially, depending on what Amazon decides to do, or the speculative whomever is doing the pilot with all the white RCVs we're seeing, right? Like someone could be taking delivery of those in Q4.
That as well. Yeah. So for those watching, right? So Zak, we've talked about him before. He is a student that lives in Normal, Illinois. Not you, not Zak here.
EV guy Zak.
Different Zak.
EV guy Zak.
But yeah, he's a student that lives in Normal, Illinois, not far from Rivian's factory, and he posts drone pictures and videos of what's happening. And from the latest pictures that he posted yesterday, I believe, we were able to see that there are a ton of white vans in that parking lot. And I asked the question, who are the white vans for? There's it's kind of like this inside joke that all the vans are segregated. So all of the colored
Oh,
vans,
Rivian.
right? Like the blue Amazon vans, the green Mevco vans, and the yellow DHL vans are like their whole different section, and all the white vans are just all by themselves. And so there's a lot of them, and I hope that Rivian has someone lined up that they'll announce soon. And but yeah, no, I think what you said, Chad, right? Commercial buyers aren't as picky, and they're buying in bulk.
Hmm.
There's an opportunity for Rivian to unlock so much revenue there.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move to have a B2B side, um, because with customers not being picky and being able to make sales in bulk, it's more efficient for them. And they have a single product that has multiple applications, which I think is very smart. Like, one thing, looking back at Tesla, they made a big bet on B2C with only having consumer vehicles. In fact, even now, still pretty limited with B2B, right? Semi isn't ramped and everything like that. And so I think it's very smart to have a diverse product catalog like Rivian has, because if something goes wrong with the consumer side, they can limp along with the B2B side if that's what they want to do, which I think is very smart on their side.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I'm trying to think if that's all in one. Oh, right. Last thing. Today. So yesterday. So today is October 11th. Yesterday was October 10th. Tesla had their
Are you
event, but
sure?
we're not going to talk about. Wait, what?
He
What did I
said
say?
today's October 11th. Yesterday was October 10th. I'm like, are you sure?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The Halloween update hasn't landed yet, Isaiah.
Yeah, the Halloween update has
You can't go back
not
to the
landed
future.
yet. Yeah, I can't go back to the future. But yesterday, sorry,
Speak for yourself.
I guess normal planning operations for Normal, Illinois, and Bloomington, that entire city county, came together to talk about Rivian's new expansion. And so across the road from Rivian's current manufacturing plant for the R1 and RCV, they will be building 2 logistics facilities. And I imagine this will help with the parts that come from R2. They're currently building 50,000 vehicles annually. And 2026, 2027, they're expecting upwards of 215. So, there's a lot of inventory and a lot of supplies and a lot of new suppliers that they're going to need to have, and they're going to have to store it someplace, and it's always going to have to be moving. So they'll have logistics centers right across the road. Right behind the logistics centers, the plot of land is zoned for general manufacturing. So I'll be honest here, I haven't followed super duper close for what Rivian's plans are for building R2. I know that they're planning on expanding Normal directly, but this zoned piece of land is made for general manufacturing. So I wonder if they'll have another sectioned off manufacturing facility for whether it's Enduro or if it's R2 or R3 or something else in the works. And the reason I mention R3, because we know R2 is built out of Normal, is Rivian recently had their environmental assessment from the Department of Energy released. And so Rivian applied for a loan from the Department of Energy. And of course, you do that, they have to give the federal government a ton of information. And what does the federal government do with that information? They make it public most of the time. And so, sorry, kind of a joke there, but no, yeah, most of the time. And so we have pretty much these entire plans of what Rivian is doing for Georgia. We know the timeline, where things will placed, and what they're planning on doing with the factory, down to how many employees, emissions. But what's really important to us enthusiast investors and owners was the timeline. And it said Q2 of 2026, Rivian plans to start construction of the Georgia factory. And it expects to be finished Q4 of 2028. So that's a while. So 2029, first half, we'd be seeing deliveries out of the first production vehicles out of the Stanton Springs, Georgia Rivian factory, which begs the question, Do you guys think we'll see R3 out of normal, or do you think Rivian's going to wait until 2029 for R3?
Or option C, do you think that Rivian will take advantage of the joint venture and the relationship with Volkswagen and possibly use the Scout factory also in, what is it, South Carolina?
Yes, that too.
My take is the factory doesn't need to be done for them to build the R3. So you said the factory will be done, but it doesn't need to be done. It just needs to part of it be built, enough of it built.
Yeah.
And so I think this isn't a binary thing. I think this is a like yes and type of thing. So I think they will have enough done in Georgia to be building R3s before the factory is done. Like, how long did it take Tesla to finish their Sparks? Was it Sparks, right? Nevada, where they do the batteries?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was 20% done and they were building batteries. I think we could see something very similar here.
Yeah, and look, I was gonna reference what they did in Austin with the 4680 Model Ys and Cybertruck. Like, they were building those, and the factory was 30% finished or something like that.
Yep.
So
that is definitely a good point. I didn't think about that. Now, in the timeline, it did say saleable production, so it didn't say factory finished. So that could also be later in the future, but it did say saleable production Q4 2028. But totally true. We could definitely see R3 made way before out of Georgia, way before the factory is actually, kind of completed.
yeah, they can do like what Boeing does with like airplanes and stuff, where they build like a lot of the components, or like, let's just say like a 737, they build the fuselage in like North Carolina, and then they put it on a truck and it goes to Seattle, and they finish it at the factory in Renton.
Everett.
Renton's the other.
Yeah, it's insane, the logistics of that. So it's something they could do. I mean, if you look, Tesla builds the batteries in Nevada and ships them over to Fremont and Austin, right? And so they could produce part of R3 and like, in Georgia, and then finish and do the general assembly somewhere else.
Awesome. I'm glad there's
so
other people.
It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a special guest with us. It is the world famous Rivian Kitty himself, Hunter. He's like, what is
the most
hideous cat ever.
The most hideous cat ever.
Anyway, so I'm glad he was able to make an appearance, because he can say goodbye to all of you, and as will we. So you have been listening and watching Rivian Rundown. Big thanks to Chad Moran of Rivian Roamer, and
thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome meeting you in person, kind of. So yeah,
I'm sure we'll meet sometime soon.
I'm planning on trying to head up to where you are in the next few months. So yeah, we want to take a road trip up the coast. My girlfriend's sister and brother-in-law technically live in Oregon, so we were just gonna go up the coast and make our way all the way up to Seattle. So definitely.
Awesome. Let me know when.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, big huge thanks to Chad and all the work he's doing on Rivian Roamer, for hanging out with us, and of course Isaiah. Glad everything came out safe for you with the hurricanes and with your truck. So
and the surge
and
drive.
The surge, yeah, making it
so much going on.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about that next episode.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as always, you can see, if you're watching us on YouTube, links to all of our socials and everything on underneath our names. We'll have them linked in the show notes and everything else. So thank you for listening to and watching Rivian. I almost said Rivian Roamer. Rivian Rundown. I'm Zach. That's Isaiah. That's Chad. I'm pointing in the order that they're on my screen. And thanks, you guys. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll see you in the next episode.